Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Zoological Association of Burdwan, I warmly welcome you to the online summer lecture series for undergraduate studies in zoology. Today, we are honored to have with us Dr. Sandipan Talukdar, an esteemed assistant professor from the Department of Zoology at Gorubathan. He graduated with honors in zoology in 2009, securing first class second rank, and completed his master's degree in zoology, earning a gold medal in 2011 from the University of North Bengal. Dr. Talukdar's research interests include fish nutrition and metabolism, as well as the socio-economic and cultural importance of fish and fisheries. He has been recognized for his outstanding contribution to the field, receiving the Outstanding Paper Presentation Award at the 5th Regional Science and Technology Congress, Western Region in 2023, the second Best Oral Presentation Award at the 4th Regional Science and Technology Congress Western Region in 2019, and the Best Oral Presentation Award at the International Conference on Aquatic Resource and Sustainable Management in 2019. With these accolades and extensive expertise, we are excited to invite Dr. Talukdar to deliver his lecture on thermoregulation. Dr. Talukdar, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh, and thank you all my respected teachers and my beloved student. Am I audible? Because this is always a dilemma in this online system. I hope
Yes, you are perfectly audible.
Okay. Now I would like to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint presentation for my beloved students, which I would like to share with you. I'm sharing it right now. Yeah. Can you see my presentations? Is it
Yes, it is
okay?
visible, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ghosh. Okay, my beloved students. So today I'm going to discuss about a topic which is very pertinent to the anatomy and the physiology and many other related aspects. And I have selected this topic because with the help of this topic, I can bring this entire system of regulating mechanisms that we have, and as living animals we are always in a need to establish our connection to our environment. Okay, and thermoregulation is one of many such interactions which help us to establish ourselves with this kind of interacting environmental systems. So that's why will be discussing thermoregulation today. Now, what is thermoregulation? As the name suggests, thermo means temperature and regulating means it trying to make it suitable for that particular individual. Okay, so what is thermoregulation? Thermoregulation is the maintenance of a particular body temperature in the living system or living individuals or living body. Now, why temperature is important? We have all read in ecology in the very first semester that we should take temperature and light very seriously, because temperature and light, both of these physiological factors or physical factors rather, are very much important and pertinent to maintain our equilibrium in our body as well as in the natural systems. Now, the most important need for temperature is to maintain the metabolic patterns, okay, and the metabolic systems. Why? Because we all know that the metabolism is such a system in our body which helps us to produce energy, and this energy actually keeps us going, it keeps us moving, it keeps us walking, talking, giving lectures, taking class notes. Everything is driven by biological energy in the form of ATP. And how this ATP gets generated? It gets generated with the help of a process called metabolism, which all of us are acquainted with. Now, which actual thing or which actual set of proteins or systems actually helps us to regulate this metabolic pattern? These are called enzymes. That is also a very common name in the biological systems. Now, we must know that although different enzymes of different animals may have the capacity to work in different situations and different parameters, but almost every enzyme has a particular portion or a particular temperature to which it is very much comfortable to work with. Okay, in the same scenario, we can find that these temperatures have this optimal range, and if we can maintain this optimal range, only then we can get the best output from the temperature. So the main reason for maintaining the body temperature is to provide an optimal temperature range for our working systems. Okay. Okay, so let us dive deep into the topic. As I told you that this thermoregulation is all about maintaining a proper temperature to our body systems. Now there are many other models or schematic presentations which may help us to dive deep into the topic, but I have intentionally chosen this particular model only because in a way this gives us a very good idea about the different forms of animals that actually do this thing of thermoregulation. Now we all know that if we want to classify our living animals in our system, we can broadly classify it as ectotherms and endotherms. Now these two terms are very closely related with two other thermological terms. One is poikilotherm, another is homeotherm. Now if you look closely in the picture, I have color coded it with light blue, deep light sky blue, deep sky blue, and light red, light brick red, and deep brick red. Now these are the four factors or the four situations where thermoregulation may actually work. Okay, so who are endotherms? Endotherms are the group of animals that uses this metabolic energy or this metabolic machinery to produce metabolic energy, and that energy actually maintains its body temperature within a narrow range. Okay, so whatever the environmental temperature would be, the animal, with the help of continuous supply of food and oxygen, would generate significant amount of ATP in order to maintain its body heat. So that's why they are actually called endotherm, because endo means inner, bhetor theke, and therm means temperature. So they maintain, they generate their body temperature from in between. That's why they are called endotherms. And similarly, there are another group like ectotherms. As the name suggests, ecto means outside. They do not use the metabolic machinery to maintain their body temperature. Rather, what they do, they uses the environmental factors like the sunlight, the most common thing, or the radiative temperature inputs in order to maintain their body temperature. Now the common example of ectotherms are fish, amphibia, reptilia, and almost most of the insects. Okay, and the common example of endotherms are birds and mammals. Okay, now coming to the two other pertinent terms. One is poikilotherm, another is homeotherm. Now these two terms are often misunderstood with ectotherms and endotherms and used in what should I say, in very simultaneous way. But yeah, both the terms are closely related. Like this, ectotherms are mostly related to poikilotherms and endotherms are mostly related to homeotherms. But there is a sharp discretion, and that discretion is on the logic on which basis we have classified this. Now ectotherms and endotherms have been classified on the basis of origin of temperature or how they generate their temperature. At the same time, poikilotherms and homeotherms are classified on the basis of the temperature range that which they regulate. The poikilotherms cannot regulate their temperature, body temperature, in a very narrow range. Rather, they would try to make their body temperature comparable to the environmental temperature. Now, what are homeotherms? Homeotherms are the birds and mammals who can maintain their body temperature through internal mechanism, and they maintain it within a very narrow range. Okay, now we'll be concentrating more on these homeotherms and endotherms due to shortage of time. Okay, so regulation of body temperature. Now regulation of body temperature is important. Now how body temperature gets diverted? There are four main physical processes that account for the heat gain and loss. First of all, these are all the four physical processes that we have been reading for long, and the one most common thing is conduction. What is conduction? Conduction is direct transfer of heat between the environment and the body. If you remain in a very hot environment, you are bound to feel heated. Okay, next is convection, transfer of heat by the flow of air or liquid or through the body surface. Now suppose you are standing in front of an AC outdoor unit. What you will feel? You will feel hot, because the AC outdoor unit exhaust fan are going to, force a very hot air, so suddenly you will feel heated. So that is convection. Third is radiation, emission of electromagnetic waves through produced by all objects warmer than absolute zero. Almost all objects which is somehow warmer produce this electromagnetic waves, that is called radiation or thermoradiation. And we would all know about different animals who can actually distinguish this. And the most popular example of this, what I can remember right now, is the pythons or the boas, who can actually detect the mice or the smaller mammals in a very dark and closed room due to their body thermal images. Now there are certain cameras and softwares who can also detect these thermal images. Okay, and the fourth is evaporation. What is evaporation? Evaporation is the loss of heat from a liquid surface, that is alongside some water from the molecule, water from molecules or as gases. So that means evaporation is the most common example. What we all experience is perspiration, that we always do. But see, there is two examples. One is visible perspiration, sweating, by which our dresses get wet in the very hot summer and humid days. But at the same time, there is also continuous evaporation going on from our skin. I'll enter into this in a latter part of my lecture. So among all these four systems, evaporation and the convection are the most variable causes of heat loss. Next, we'll dive deep into this ectotherm endotherm dilemma. Ectotherms drive body heat mainly from their surroundings. As I told you, they do busking, they do hurdling, some other behavioral modifications to maintain their body heat or to reduce the loss of their body heat, or in very hot summer areas they would like to do not want to uptake heat from the surrounding. So this is the main character of the ectotherms. At the same time, endotherms drive it by internal metabolism. I have written it in pink because till my lecture up to this point, this is the take home message. Okay, now let's dive a bit deeper. A terrestrial lifestyle presents certain problems that have been solved by the evolution of endothermy. Now I may ask a question: which one is more efficient? Someone will say endothermy is more efficient, sir, because it is seen in higher evolutionary, higher stage animals, birds and mammals. But I always come up with a counter question: if ectothermy would have been not very efficient, or ectothermy would have been inefficient, why ectothermal animals are still living after millions of years? Most of the animals you can see around you they are mostly ectothermal. So ectothermy must also have certain advantages. Okay, but obviously terrestrial lifestyle presents certain problems that have been solved by the evolution of endothermy. What are these problems? Environmental temperatures fluctuate more than aquatic habitats. We all have experienced this, because the water doesn't get as heated as the air or the solid substratum that we see around us. And the second is, endothermic vertebrates are usually warmer than the environment, but also have mechanism to cool their bodies. We all have different mechanism by which we can cool our body. On the other hand, Endothermy requires more energy than ectothermy. That's why we need to feed 4 times a day. Why? Because we have this internal machine running. We need constant supply of glucose, glucose, fatty acids and glycerols and amino acid, mostly glucose, to run our machine. We need constant supply of oxygen for combustion. So basically, endothermy is more, costly. You need to have a constant supply of food and oxygen in order to run this machine and in order to produce energy. Okay, so from here I'm coming to the cost and benefits of endothermy and ectothermy. Okay, both have their own advantages and disadvantages, but for aquatic lifestyle it is generally perceived, but even though there may be certain variations, but generally it is seen that in aquatic life system, ectothermy may be, or ectothermy and poikilothermic approaches may be very helpful. But then again, certain very fast swimming fishes, they also have developed this sort of endothermal approach, like the tunas. They swim very fast, and due to very fast swimming they generate metabolic heat in order to maintain their body temperature. That is also seen. At the same time, there are certain ectothermal terrestrial animals also. Okay, but like certain reptiles are also ectothermal. The most common example is crocodile. We have all seen crocodiles to bask. I'll be coming to those later. Okay, so basically what happens, ectothermy or endothermy both have their own advantages and disadvantages. It is up to the animal and the surrounding environment on which it is living. Depending on that, the animal chooses a particular strategy, and if that strategy becomes successful, then the animal establishes itself in the community and in the nature. And if it doesn't succeed, then the animal has to take a bypass route, and if it is not able to take a bypass route, the obvious response is going to be fatal for the animal. Okay, so ectotherms generally have a lower metabolic rate than endotherms, thus requiring less energy. We all know that. That's why, a python only eats, I mean, once and twice a year. A crocodile may eat only once in months. But a very small mammal like a rat, it has to eat constantly because it has more metabolic demand. And as I have been saying from the start of my lecture, which are the two most important things to drive our machine? One is constant supply of oxygen, and second is constant supply of glucose. So one you are going to get from food, one you are going to get by the process of respiration. Okay, so the second point is ectotherms low capacity for aerobic respiration reduce duration of energy burst. Third, ectotherms that control body temperature do not always encounter environmental conditions to do so. Yes, that's also evident. Endotherms need to have a high intake of energy to sustain high metabolic rate, and high rate of respiration in endotherms leads to high rate of water evaporation. So if you run a machine, it is bound to get heated, and if it gets heated, you need to bring it down also. You need to bring the temperature down also. So it's a costly, endothermy is a costly, way of sustaining yourself if you live in a terrestrial environment. But even then, that's more helpful because it helps you, it makes you less dependent on the environmental factors. I can give you a best example. In a very cold wintry morning, okay, you will not find a crocodile very active, but the cold and the wintry environment may not be that much effective on say for example a smaller mammal like a shrew, or say for example like a rabbit. They may not have that much. Yeah, obviously low ambient temperature would make it more demanding for the rabbit, but at the same time its body activity or body movements may not be hindered due to the lack of ambient temperature. So in the very early morning, a snake or a crocodile, or say for example a lizard, may be a very easy target for its predator, but the mammals are not like so. Okay, let's dive into the next point. Thermoregulation involves physical and behavioral adjustment. Till now, I have only discussed about physical adjustments, but there are certain behavioral adjustments also, which we are going to discuss. Is vasoconstriction. In biology, the terms are very important. If you want to break this term into small pieces, then you can always remember it. Vaso, the term vaso comes from vessels. Okay, and vasodilation. Dilation means increasing of diameter, so that's called vasodilation. Now what is vasodilation? Increase of blood flow to the skin due to an increase in the diameter of blood vessels near the body or the surface, that means the peripheral body. Okay, and second is vasoconstriction. What is vasoconstriction? Decreases of blood flow to the skin due to decrease in the diameter of the blood vessels near the body surface. So we all have experienced it in a very cold chilly morning. If you move out of your house, you have all these winter coats, jackets, and these hand gloves, caps, or everything, and awning, especially in the area where I live, it becomes very chilly in the morning of winters. You will find your face becomes pale. Your face become pale. It becomes almost devoid of blood. And similarly, if you are playing football in a very hot summer evening, once you take a rest after playing football, you are all drenched with sweat. You'll also find that your face would actually turn red due to vasodilation, like your ears will turn red. Why? Because your body heat has been increased due to very high level of metabolism. Now the blood vessels have dilated on the peripheral surface, and it is actually losing some heat to the environment. And so these are the two most common mechanisms for body regulation. One is vasodilation and other is vasoconstriction. Okay, so are you getting me? If you have any query, you can straight away interfere and ask me. I'd be more than happy to answer your questions, because and in any way, if you find something not clear, and if you want some elaboration or extension, you may always ask me. Otherwise, I'll be continuing. Okay, next is behavioral responses. What are these behavioral responses? There are three main behavioral responses that we can consider. One is basking. I have also already discussed about this. We have all seen reptiles and birds to bask. Even birds do basking. Basking means Banglaয় যাকে বলে রোদ পোয়ানো. Second is estivation. Estivation means গ্রীষ্মকালে ঘুমোনো. And next is hibernation. শীত ঘুম, যেটা ব্যাং করে. So all of us are very much acquainted with these terms. First one is basking, second is estivation, and third is hibernation. Now why basking is important? Basking is a perfect behavioral adaptation of an ectotherm to increase its body temperature. In the early morning, you will find that the reptiles, mostly the lizards and the snakes and even some crocodiles, you will see them place their body towards the sun rays, and they would often do it on a big stone or a big rock. Why? Because the rocks will get heated. Once the rock will get heated, the temperature from the rock as well as from the overhead sun would increase their body temperature. So as the temperature would increase, their enzymes and the metabolic will get back to its active state. The best example of this basking can be seen in one of the most popular and the widely studied lizard species, which is only one marine species. Can anyone name me? Do you know about any lizard species which is marine, which lives in seas? I mean, partly in seas. Any idea from anyone? Have you heard about Galapagos Islands? Anyone? From the context of evolution, Galapagos Island.
Yes,
Why
sir.
is it? Yeah, it is famous for whom?
Darwin's finches.
Yes, very good, very good, very good answer. So in the Galapagos Island, it is a set of volcanic islands near equator, Latin America, where you can find these islands called Galapagos, and there you can find a particular type of lizard species which are called marine iguana, and these marine iguanas are the only species of lizard that can actually live in water. Okay, true lizards that can live in water. And why they are unique? Because these marine iguanas are actually algae phagous, so they actually eat on the marine algae that grows on the crevices. And what they do, the water becomes very cold and very chilly in the mornings, and then what they do, they sit on the rocks, and the rocks get heated due to sunlight, so they increase their body temperature. Then as they increase their body temperature by basking, they would actually dive into this water, this sea, and they would dive deep and go into the crevices of these different rocky islands, and from there they would scrape off the algae, and once they start to feel a bit chilly, they would again get up to the rocky beds on the shore of the ocean, and they would stretch their body and keep their body parallel to that of the sunlight. And as due to very hot sun of the equatorial region, their body temperature will start to go up, and once they would again regain their body temperature, they can again dive back. Okay, so this is the perfect example of basking thermoregulation. It's a sort of a behavioral thermoregulation. You can see in my slide the diagram of. Then again, the larger animals like the elephants, they also do bask. And then again, you have seen other animals like the poultries. They would actually try to keep themselves constricted to the shades so that they do not feel heated up due to very hot summer days. We also do that. And then again, this is one another picture. I don't know whether that picture is clear or not, but on that picture you can see a herd of penguins. Now what they do, they are actually doing a fantastic behavioral phenomenon which is called herding. Now if someone follow hockey or cricket, you may have seen after the fall of a wicket, sometimes what the cricketers do, they do make a circle, keep their hands on the shoulders of the other, and they do make a circle. Even in hockey, before taking a penalty corner, what the defenders or the attackers will do, they would come all close together and they would make a circle. So that's called an hurdle. So why animals also hurdle? Because as they hurdle, they prevent their radiative heat loss or conductive heat loss. Okay, so the weaker ones, the smaller ones, the older ones would be kept on the center of the hurdles, and the others will remain on the side. By this way they would prevent airflow, and in a way they would prevent themselves, or they would protect themselves from the blizzards in the polar area. Okay, so this is one behavioral responses, and the next is changing the rate of metabolic heat production. This is found only in the birds and the mammals, because as you have known by this time that only the birds and the mammals do metabolic heat production, so they can also regulate it. Like every fan has a regulator, like this the metabolism also has a regulator, and these are regulated by different rate limiting enzymes. And next is increased skeletal muscle activity and non-shivering thermogenesis can greatly increase the amount of metabolic heat production. Okay, so this is the feedback mechanism. This is the feedback mechanism for heat production. Okay, so sorry, this is the feedback mechanism for thermoregulation. As you can see, we have this fine system to maintain our body temperature, and which particular organ is solely responsible for that, but not solely, but principally is the brain actually. Then which part of the brain? Hypothalamus. You all know the floor of the third ventricle, and this hypothalamus has the heat regulating center, and what it does, it incorporates an influence on the sweat glands, and the sweat is secreted, and as the sweat gets evaporated, our body gets cooled. Okay, at the same time, they also promote cutaneous evaporation, cutaneous vasodilation, as I have already discussed. During while playing football, once you feel very heated, you will always see your face become reddish due to excessive cutaneous vasodilation. So these things actually help to reduce your body temperature. And then suddenly, if you want to increase your body temperature, then you need to have you we all have many, nerve endings, specified receptors, duct of Golgi Mazzoni, duct of Raffini, on our body surfaces. They are actually thermoreceptors, so they are constantly scanning our environment and sending data to our brain. And due to when they sense that, yeah, the temperature is decreasing, so the people start to feel chilled. Okay, and then what it happens, there is a negative influence on the hypothalamus. It guides the nervous system to control it, and then obviously the secretion of the sweat glands are reduced. Okay, so skin works as a very important thermoregulatory structure. Why? Because first, it has a subcutaneous layer of fat. Every one of us have a subcutaneous layer of fat. It may vary up to 8 to 32% in case of mammals, even more in certain cases. Next is brown fat. What is brown fat? Brown fat is a dedicated tissue that you can find mostly in the bats, but also in the newborn mammals. And why it is brown? It is brown due to the presence of mitochondria, and the mitochondria are, as we all know, the mitochondria or the mitochondrions are the energy producers in our system. So more mitochondria means more energy. That's why brown fat is very much important for newborn animals to maintain their body heat. Next is feathers, hair, and fur. I mean, these, you all know about this. These things are very good insulators, like the jackets we have, like the very furry, woolly jackets that we wear when we are in Kashmir or in Darjeeling, because it helps us comfortable. It works as an insulator. It helps to reduce our conductive heat loss. Next is cutaneous circulation. I have detailed deep into this. Only one thing that I have not discussed, I will discuss later, that is counter current heat exchange mechanism. Next is evaporation, and last is receptors. Okay, so we have been discussing about heat only. So let us discuss a little about cold. We all do feel cool in the winters, mostly in the early morning. You may have seen from your window a pigeon is doing this. Now what the pigeon is doing? The pigeon is erecting its feathers. We also do something in a same way, যেটা আমরা বলি ভয় গায়ের লোম খাড়া হয়ে যাওয়া. In biological term, that's called pilo erection. Okay, so same thing that can be seen in a mammal and a bird. What they do, they increase their, they make their feathers and their body hairs perpendicular. Only one, what is the reason? The reason would be to trap more air within them, so that that air can work as an insulator and can reduce your heat loss. At the same time, on the left bottom side of my screen, I have drawn a picture. You can see by black arrows, I have meant that the blood is flowing on that direction, and the blood is flowing through the interior channels or interior vessels. On the surface of the body, there is this exterior vessels or exterior side branching that have been cut down due to vasoconstriction. So once you are going to feel cold, your first response is to cut down peripheral blood circulation. Why? That would do two things. That would not ensure any heat loss through the peripheral surface, and second, you can regulate your body temperature, or you can send your warmer blood to the core of the body, so that there is lesser chance of heat loss. Okay, so next is physiological response to heat. What we feel, there are four common responses. First is vasodilation, I have already discussed, and on the left top side of the slide, middle part, you can see this diagram also, where I have written, and with red arrows I have demarcated the radiative heat loss. Next is panting. Panting is seen in dogs and foxes. Okay, what they do not have very functional sweat glands throughout their body, except their paws and in certain parts of the feet only. They do not have this very functional sweat glands like we all have, we have throughout our body. Okay, and so what they do, they when they feel very heated, they would actually extend their tongue, and through the tongue they would do forced or labored respiration, and through this respiration they would have this evaporative heat loss, and this phenomenon is called panting. The similar phenomenon may also be seen in birds, in certain birds, which is known as gular fluttering. So what they do, the birds will do, they would flutter their throat region and open their beaks, and in the same way they would also do evaporative heat loss. Okay, but due to lack of time I am not going deep into this. And next is sweating. Okay, sweating is something which we all experience. And now coming to the fourth most important part, that is counter current heat exchange. Okay, now this I have taken the example from an aquatic crane, but at the same time you can see this counter current heat exchange in many other aquatic animals, like say for example in whales and dolphins. Within their flippers and blubbers, they also have this counter current heat exchange mechanism. Now what is this counter current heat exchange mechanism? Just see in the central box like diagram. The red means hot blood or heated blood, and the blue means cold blood. Okay, so basically what happens when the core blood is usually heated and the external environment is very cold, so what they are actually doing, once they are sending the, suppose they are sending the core heated blood to the surrounding, then what would happen, the heat loss would be very much. So by this counter current mechanism there is anti-parallel movement or anti-parallel circulation of blood. So what happens when the very hot blood that is directed towards the periphery of the body, and at the same time there is a cooler blood that is coming from the surface, they both come in contact. And you contact means not physical contact, but they will come in proximity, the blood vessels. And you all know that when a heated thing comes in close with a cooler thing, what would happen, there would be heat exchange, and the heat exchange will keep on continuing till the point of time there is similarity or there is similarity in the temperature ranges. So both of the things will keep on exchanging heat till the point of time they would reach their exact similar temperature. Okay, so that is called counter current heat exchange or mechanism. I have only cited one example. You can peep into any physiology book or coded book, and you will find a loads of example of this counter current heat example. Now look at this diagram. I mean, whatever I have talked throughout this lecture is actually incorporated in this diagram. Okay, so what we have a perfect regulatory system in our body, which is regulated by two things. One, the nerve receptors, which are present mostly on the body surface or the open body areas. And what these nerve receptors do, these nerve receptors just take, what should I say, take stimulus, thermal stimulus from the environment, and they would send this, sorry, very sorry, yeah, they will send this stimulus back to our brain. And there is a dedicated part of our brain within the hypothalamus, which is called the thermocenter. The thermocenter directs certain responses in our body. That may be, those responses may be physiological, those responses may be behavioral, those responses may even be biochemical. Why? Because they would regulate their metabolism. Okay, if possible they would promote sweating. More and more sweating would mean more and more sweat production on the surface of the body, and due to lean heat, once those sweat gets evaporated, we will feel cold. And obviously the third thing is behavioral adaptation. I have talked about basking, I have talked about radiating ourselves or orienting ourselves towards the sunlight. And for some reason, if the body becomes very heated, then we can see ourselves taking shelter in shades. I mean, if you ever have been in the deserts in the very hot afternoons, you will find most of the animals have taken shelters between the crevices or the big stones or the rocks that are present in the in the desert. Okay, and they would only become active during the very early morning and during the very late evenings. Now desert is a very challenging place. I think you know why. Because in the desert during the afternoons it becomes very heated, and in the early morning and the late evenings, or even the in midnight, it becomes very cold. Why? Because the desert, in desert you will find mostly sand and rocks, and they do get heated up very quickly. At the same time they also get cooled very quickly. Okay, so this schematic representation, if you can see this deeply, you can see this entire concept of thermoregulation in birds and mammals by different physiological mechanisms. Okay, so this is my short lecture on thermoregulation. I hope you have learned something from this. Now if you have any queries, I'll try to answer them. Any questions from anyone interested?
Dear students, if you have any question, please interact with our resource persons. Dr. Talukdar, I have one suggestion. Please
Yeah,
refer some textbooks for students.
sure. For textbooks, I mean, there are many textbooks, but I find as students, the combined book, it's commonly known as the combined book by S. Chand publication, where you can get many topics together, like molecular biology, cell biology, genetics, ecology, and evolution. Possibly for the students, which will have many of these topics. At the same time, you will have a book. I always follow this book, Cardong Vertebrates. It's a very good book. And also, if you want to dive deeper into the topic, then that would be by Hildebrand. It's a behavioral physiological book, Behavioral Physiology by Hildebrand. It's a very good book, but the concepts are written most in an experimental way. But I would not suggest you to go straight into those foreign writers. First, you know concepts. You clear your concept from this easily available books. Now, then if you are interested, then you can go dive deep, because in Hildebrand you will get a detailed account of this behavior of the marine iguana, the behavior of the penguins, or even the similar type of thermoregulatory behavior in camels. I have not discussed about this in my lecture, but camels also do the similar kind of thermoregulation through radiative heat loss. What they do in the evenings, when the temperature starts to go down in the deserts, you may have seen that they would sit on the sand, and they would extend their bellies on the sand. And as the sand will become cooler and cooler, the body temperature will also radiate it to the sand through this radiative heat loss, and the camel would start to feel a little cooler also. Okay, so these are some of the common books. Plus nowadays there are so many web materials available. You can always go through this, but try to be very cautious about using this web material. I am always in favor of books. Read books. If you read more books, you'll be more happy, you'll be gaining more concept, and it would be helpful for you.
Thank you, sir, for your suggestion. Joyashri Kona raised her hand.
Okay.
Please, any question?
Yes, Joyশ্রী, বাংলায় বলতে পারো, কোনো সমস্যা নেই। Sir, does counter current heat exchange mechanism? Yeah, I lost the message. Let me go into the message. Yeah. Sir, does counter current heat exchange mechanism also happen in human? Yeah, it does happen. It does happen, but it is not that evident, because we do not experience this on a very normal way. But suppose you are in a situation when, due to certain what should I say, accidents or something, you would need to put your hand in snow. Okay, so what is the common example is that your body tissues would get cooled, and you will suffer with a phenomenon called frostbite. Okay, but then again your body tries to do the same thing that would be done on a flipper of a whale or a dolphin or the legs of an aquatic bird. But as you know, it's not very common in human beings because we have many other adaptations, we have many other, you know, bypass mechanisms by which we can do that. But there is, you know, it's a model, it's a physiological model. You will always find that the arteries are veins being close together. So there is no reason that it may not happen, it cannot happen, but it usually doesn't happen that regularly. That's all. Thank you.
Any more
Sir.
question?
Yes, sir.
Please.
স্যার আমি জিজ্ঞেস করছিলাম যে আমাদের যখন এমনিতে অ্যাডাল্ট হিউম্যানের ক্ষেত্রে কাউন্টার কারেন্ট মেকানিজম বা হিট এক্সচেঞ্জ মেকানিজমটা হচ্ছে, তাহলে নিউবর্ন বডির ক্ষেত্রে, নিউবর্ন যে বেবি হবে তাদের ক্ষেত্রেও কি সেম ফাংশন হবে না কিছু ডিফার
না
থাকবে?
না না, দেখো আমাদের ক্ষেত্রে হচ্ছে এটা নয়, মানে বেসিক্যালি কি হয়, কাউন্টার এগুলো হচ্ছে এক একটা স্ট্র্যাটেজি, ঠিক আছে? কাউন্টার কারেন্ট হিট এক্সচেঞ্জ একটা স্ট্র্যাটেজি। কাদের ক্ষেত্রে এটা হবে? যাদের ক্ষেত্রে এটা খুব প্রলংড ইম্পর্টেন্স আছে। একটা পাখি, একটা জলচর পাখি, মানে একটা সারস, তাকে শীতকালেও ঠান্ডা জলে দাঁড়িয়ে কিন্তু মাছটা ধরতে হবে, তাই তো? তার
হ্যাঁ
জন্য
স্যার।
তার জন্য সে বাধ্য, কাউন্টার কারেন্ট মেকানিজম, তার জন্য সেই ডিউ টু অ্যাডাপ্টেশন, কন্টিনিউয়াস অ্যাডাপ্টেশন, সেটা তাদের ক্ষেত্রে আরো ডেভেলপড হয়েছে। What is counter current mechanism? Counter current mechanism is a modification of vasoconstriction and vasodilation. তাই তো? এটাও তো এক ধরনের সার্কুলেটরি অ্যাডাপ্টেশনস। কিন্তু আমাদের নিউবর্নদের ক্ষেত্রে যদি তুমি দেখো, নিউবর্নরা খুবই সাসেপ্টেবল হয় টেম্পারেচার চেঞ্জের সাথে, ঠিক আছে? ওই জন্য দেখবে বাড়িতে যদি ছোট বাচ্চা থাকে তারা কিন্তু সবসময়, তারা কিন্তু খুব একটা সোয়েটিংও করে না, তারা সবসময় খানিকটা ঠান্ডার মধ্যে ফিল করে, তাই জন্য তাদের ঢেকে রাখতে হয়। এর একমাত্র সলিউশন হচ্ছে, যেটা আমাদের ক্ষেত্রেও দেখা যায়, সেটা আমি অলরেডি লেকচারে ডিসকাস করেছি কিন্তু বলিনি, সেটা হচ্ছে ব্রাউন ফ্যাটস। ইভেন হিউম্যান নিউবর্নস হ্যাভ রিসেন্টলি বিন ডিটেক্টেড উইথ ব্রাউন ফ্যাটস। আমাদের তাদের মধ্যেও ব্রাউন ফ্যাট থাকে। এছাড়া যেটা হয়, বাচ্চাদের মেটাবলিক রেট ইউজুয়ালি অ্যাডাল্টদের থেকে খানিকটা বেশিও হয়। কেন হয়? তার কারণ, সেই কারণে দেখবে বাচ্চাদের খুব তাড়াতাড়ি খিদে পেয়ে যায়, ওরা অনেক তাড়াতাড়ি খাবার খায়। কেন না? বেশি খাবার খায় এবং খুব তাড়াতাড়ি সেটাকে ডাইজেস্টও করতে পারে ডিউ টু হিট লস। প্লাস এর সাথে আরো একটা ব্যাপার আছে, এই হিট লস বা হিট গেইন এটা ডিপেন্ড করে সারফেস টু ভলিউম রেশিওর উপরও। তোমার সারফেস টু ভলিউম রেশিও যত বেশি হবে, সেখানে তার এফেক্টটা তত বেশি হবে। এটাও আমি লেকচারে বলার সময় পাইনি, যে তুমি যদি দেখো একটোথার্মস আর এন্ডোথার্মসের মধ্যে ইউজুয়ালি এন্ডোথার্মরা ওই জন্য সাইজে অনেক ছোট হয়। বুঝতে পেরেছো তো? কেননা যত বডি বেশি হবে, যত সাইজটা বেশি হবে, ভলিউম টু সারফেস রেশিও যত বেশি হবে, তত তাদের বডির হিট লসের চান্স বেশি। তো বাচ্চাদের নিউবর্নকে তো আর হিউম্যান নিউবর্নকে তো আর জলে দাঁড়িয়ে থাকতে হয় না ডিউ টু দ্য হিউম্যান নেচার। তো আমরা তো সেইভাবে, সেই জন্য তার ক্ষেত্রে এই কাউন্টার কারেন্ট মেকানিজমটা সেই অর্থে খুব একটা ওয়েল ডেভেলপ নয় বা প্রয়োজনও হয়নি। কিন্তু হ্যাঁ, ভ্যাসো কনস্ট্রিকশন, ভ্যাসো ডাইলেশন তো অবশ্যই দেখা যায়।
ওকে স্যার, থ্যাংক ইউ।
খুব কম। অ্যাডাল্ট হিউম্যানে সেই অর্থে থাকে না, মানে এখনো জানা যায়নি। এটা ব্যাটসদের মধ্যে খুব বেশি দেখা যায়। ব্যাটসদের বিশেষ করে ঘাড়ের কাছটা, নেক রিজিয়ন অফ দ্য ব্যাট, দুটো প্যাটাজিয়াম যেখানে এসে অ্যাড করছে, ঠিক ঘাড়ের পেছনটায় নেক রিজিয়ন, সেইখানে মেনলি ব্রাউন ফ্যাটটা থাকে। এবং এই ব্রাউন ফ্যাটটা আবার খুব হাইলি ভাস্কুলারাইজড হয়। তার কারণ, যে হিটটা তৈরি হয় ওটা যাতে খুব তাড়াতাড়ি, এবং হিট তৈরি করতে গেলে দুটো জিনিস দরকার, আগেই বলেছি, একটা হচ্ছে ফুড সাপ্লাই দরকার, একটা অক্সিজেন দরকার। দুটোই টিস্যুতে কিভাবে পৌঁছায়? থ্রু সার্কুলেটরি সিস্টেম। সেই জন্য কি হয়, এদেরই এই নেক রিজিয়নে প্রচুর হাইলি ভাস্কুলারাইজড হয়। ওই জন্য যখন হিটটা জেনারেটেড হয় ইন ব্যাটস, এটা খুব তাড়াতাড়ি ডেসিমিটেড হয়। অ্যাডাল্ট হিউম্যানে প্রায় দেখা যায় না বললেই চলে। ইয়েস। নেক্সট হচ্ছে, স্যার, ডাজ অ্যাঙ্গার হ্যাভ এ রোল টু প্লে ইন ইনক্রিজিং temperature, increasing temperature, you may be suggesting body temperature. Yes, anger এর সাথে রোল আছে, সেটা ডাইরেক্ট রোল নয়, সেটা একটু অন্য ধরনের রোল, আমি ডিসকাস করছি। অ্যাঙ্গার হলে কি হয়, অ্যাঙ্গার হলে বেসিক্যালি ইটস অ্যান ইমোশনাল সিচুয়েশন, অ্যান্ড ইমোশনাল সিচুয়েশন ইজ a মোর অফ এ সাইকোলজিক্যাল সিচুয়েশন। সো সাইকো ইমোশনাল সিচুয়েশনসে কি হয়, আমরা জানি যে দুটো জিনিস কাজ করে। এক, আমাদের একটা এন্ডোক্রাইন সিস্টেম আছে বডিতে, সেই এন্ডোক্রাইন সিস্টেমের ভেতরে একটা খুব কমন সিস্টেম আছে যেটাকে আমরা বলি ইমার্জেন্সি হরমোন, সেটা অ্যাড্রিনাল মেডুলা থেকে বেরোয়। তোমরা কেউ বলতে পারবে অ্যাড্রিনাল মেডুলা থেকে আমাদের কি কি হরমোন বেরোয়?
স্যার এপিনেফ্রিন, নরএপিনেফ্রিন।
হ্যাঁ, এক্স্যাক্টলি, এদেরকে আমরা বলি ইমার্জেন্সি হরমোন। তো যখন ইউজুয়ালি মানুষ খুব রেগে যায়, তখন তার মধ্যে বিভিন্ন ধরনের সাইকোলজিক্যাল ফিলিংস আছে, এবং সেই ফিলিংস গুলো আমাদের ব্রেনের বিভিন্ন অংশে কাজ করে। সেগুলোর খুব ডিটেল মেকানিজম এখন আবিষ্কার হয়ে গেছে, কিন্তু আমি অত ডিটেলসে যাচ্ছি না। এবং সেই ব্রেন তখন কি করে, ব্রেন তখন ইউজুয়ালি কিছু ফিজিওলজিক্যাল রেসপন্স শো করে। ওকে, সেই ফিজিওলজিক্যাল রেসপন্সের মধ্যে একটা হচ্ছে এক্সেসিভ হাই মাসেল অ্যাক্টিভিটি। এটাকে তুমি যদি হেলডেব্র্যান্ডের বইয়ে দেখো, এটাকে লেখা আছে ফ্লাইট অর ফ্লি। ওকে, বা হারপারের এন্ডোক্রিনোলজি বই যদি দেখো, মলিকুলার এন্ডোক্রিনোলজি বাই হারপার, সেখানে এই কনসেপ্টটা লেখা আছে। তুমি যে প্রশ্নটা করেছো রাগ হলে, এটাকে বলা হয় ফ্লাইট অর ফ্লি কনসেপ্ট, মানে হয় যুদ্ধ করো বা পালিয়ে যাও। তো এখানে কি হয়, আমাদের এই এপিনেফ্রিন নন এপিনেফ্রিন সিক্রেশনটা বেড়ে যায়, ফলে ব্লাড প্রেশারটা আমাদের অনেক বেড়ে যায়। আর যখনই ব্লাড প্রেশারটা বেড়ে যাবে, তখন কিন্তু ব্লাড প্রেশারটাকে রেগুলেট করার জন্য ভ্যাসোডাইলেশন মাস্ট। ওকে, তো অবভিয়াসলি ব্লাড প্রেশার বেড়ে গেলে ভ্যাসোডাইলেশন হয়, ভ্যাসোডাইলেশন হয় বলে ওই যে আমরা বাংলায় বলি না রেগে লাল হয়ে গেছে, এটা হচ্ছে ওইটাই মেন কারণ। অতিরিক্ত রাগ হলে আমাদের ব্লাড প্রেশারটা ভীষণ বেড়ে যায়, আর যখন ব্লাড প্রেশারটা বেড়ে যায়, তখন একটা নর্মাল ফিজিওলজিক্যাল রেসপন্স হচ্ছে সেটাকে কন্ট্রোল করার জন্য ভ্যাসোডাইলেশন বেড়ে যায়। এবং এই ব্লাড প্রেশার বাড়া, রাগ হওয়া, ব্লাড প্রেশারটা বাড়া এবং ভ্যাসোডাইলেশন হওয়া, এই তিনটে পয়েন্টের ভেতরে কানেক্টর হিসেবে কাজ করে আমাদের এই ইমার্জেন্সি হরমোন এপিনেফ্রিন বা নরএপিনেফ্রিন।
Please follow the chat box. I have already mentioned the mail ID of Honorable Speaker, Dr. Sandipan Talukdar. If you have any more question, you may interact through mail. So we are grateful to you, Dr. Talukdar, for accepting our invitation and sharing your valuable knowledge with us. Dr. Talukdar has beautifully discussed the fundamental concept of thermoregulation. I congratulate you on delivering such an insightful lecture, which I am confident will greatly benefit our students in their academic endeavors. We also extend our thanks to the students for their active participation. As we conclude this lecture session, we kindly request the students to remain with us for the second session. We will commence the next session at 7 p.m. Sir, thank you. Stay with us.
Thank you, Sharasta.